So the question now is, how do we elicit this feeling? It's all very well to understand what it is, but what's the actual practice behind it? So one of the ways that we can elicit it, gratitude is a way of wedging into devotion. All right, so gratitude is not devotion per se, but it's a good way to enter into it. So we were talking earlier about devotion being the effacement of ego, the reduction of our ego. So we can think of ego as functioning in two ways. One is complacency, and the other is entitlement. All right? So when we're complacent, what does that mean? What's complacency? No, that wouldn't be complacency. If you're complacent, it means complacent means that you don't think. So in a sense, yeah, I guess it's related. Yeah, you just do what you're told without thinking. So yeah, there's a sense of complacency there. But think of it more in terms of, you know, a parent is harassing a child and says, you don't know you're alive. You don't know how good you've got it. In a sense, this is what we're talking about with complacency. We take it for granted. What's something that you take for granted? All right, what's a good example? Your eyesight. You just take it for granted that you can see. It's normal, natural to you. You don't think about it. You're not aware of it. It's an absence of awareness. You take for granted you can walk. Your body's function. You take for granted that you don't have to, you know, worry about getting shot on the way to school or to work. You take for granted that you don't have to worry about, you know, so many different things. It's a lack of awareness. So one of the ways that ego functions is through ignorance. Right? Another way the ego functions is entitlement, which is
I deserve that.
Yeah, give me. I want.
You may not deserve it, but I deserve it.
Yeah, entitlement. It's a feeling of I deserve it. Give me. So where ignorance is kind of passive, this is more of an active selfishness. I want. All right. So these are two ways the ego functions. So then, what does gratitude do? Okay, first of all, what is gratitude? Define gratitude. Being thankful. Yep. So then how does it relate to ego? How does it relate to complacency and entitlement? Well, think of it this way. You can't be grateful for something that you're unaware of. In order for you to be grateful for your eyesight, you have to be aware, I can see. In order to be grateful for your functioning physical body, you have to be aware my body works just fine. So the moment we have gratitude for something, we're getting rid of that complacency. Not only that, but when we're grateful for something, it's impossible for us to ask for more. Right? It's that idea that you see in 23rd Psalm. He says, my cup runneth over. Now when you have that sensation, my cup runneth over, I have so much. When you have that feeling inside you, I've got so much. In that climate, the feeling of I want more cannot exist. Now we talk about climate change. The certain parts of the world are getting colder, some are getting hotter, some are getting drier, some are getting wetter. Certain species of life will not be able to thrive in that climate. You make it dry and hot, these trees won't survive. They can't survive in that climate. When you have that climate of gratitude, that thought, that feeling of I want more, it cannot survive. So gratitude is a way of effacing the ego from that sense of complacency and from that sense of entitlement. Right? It's a way of learning how to give. So for example, if you want to give, you have to feel that you have enough. And you might be a millionaire, a billionaire, but if you feel I haven't got enough, then you can't give. If you're living very humble means, but you feel that sense of gratitude, I've got so much, then it's easy for you to share. So this is the first way that we can start to work into devotion, is by developing a gratitude practice. All right, so this is something that we can do on a daily basis. It doesn't have to be daily, it could be, every few days, whatever. But essentially what we're doing is we find a quiet time, a quiet place. We're not rushed. We've got nothing that we need to do in the next 15 minutes, so we give ourselves plenty of time. You just sit for a moment and think, what am I grateful for? Right? And it's not just mechanically rattling off a list. It's not that we say, well, I know I'm grateful because I'm physically healthy, a good family, beautiful children, I've got a job. You don't just rattle off a list of things and you're done, right? We're looking for that shift in the emotional tone. It could be anything. It could be something which is normally insignificant to you. So we were using the example of eyesight before. So you're scrolling through the news feed and you see a news story. A young 25-year-old guy, he's at work. He wasn't wearing safety glasses. He's got shards of metal in his eyes. He's blind for the rest of his life. It's a tragic story, my God, that poor fellow. Next morning, you're doing your gratitude practice. That memory just comes back to you. I'm thankful that I have eyesight. I'm thankful I can see. Bang, there's that shift. You feel it. You feel that change. There's a sense of a lowering of that barrier of ego. So that's what we're looking for. So the gratitude practice is to spend a little bit of time just eliciting and generating that feeling, cultivating it. In whichever way works for you. There's no specific ways to practice, but any way that it happens. And then once you've got it, once it's flowing, drink it in. Absorb it. Revel in it, bathe in it. Don't just create done. Think of it like you do a really extreme workout in a gym, right? And then you go and get your favorite health drink. You get that sensation. What are you doing? You drink it in. You can feel all of those nutrients and all of that goodness being absorbed, be sucked into the body. You are what you eat. You are becoming that. All right? Think of it in the same way as your emotional body. Drink in that emotion of gratitude. Elicit it, create it, and now feel it going in. Suck it up. Really drink it in. So this is one of the ways that we can start to elicit gratitude, that practice. But you brought up a very good point. Gratitude is still self-centered. Why? You're thinking about what I got. I'm grateful that I have this. I'm grateful that my son passed his exams. Are you grateful that your neighbour's son passed his exams? I'm thankful that I have a physically healthy body. Are you thankful that your neighbour has a physically healthy body? No. So it's all just related back to me, me, me. So it's got this sort of egocentric boundary around it. It's a much better stage. It's a much higher level of development than complacency and entitlement, of course. But we do have to recognize its limitation. So anytime that we are doing this gratitude practice, just on the periphery of our awareness, just remember, there's something beyond gratitude. There's something outside of this. There's something that this naturally flowers into over time. So think of devotion. Think of gratitude as maturing into devotion. And so it matures into what we were talking about earlier. That perception, that recognition of what he refers to as the splash of divinity everywhere. And so we're talking about prayers and religious rituals and all that sort of thing. You don't need to have any sort of religious affiliation to get into the mode of devotion. You can be an atheist and feel devotion. Right? So one of the ways he talks about eliciting devotion, he says you can elicit that feeling of devotion by tuning in to the functioning of nature. So this becomes one of the ways that we can practice. This idea that there's some, and we can use any word we want, all of them are limited, so don't take any of them at face value. Recognize that they're also symbolic. But you recognize that there is this intelligence behind the entire functioning of nature. You cut yourself, it heals. How? How does the body know? Some intelligence of nature. You know what tropisms are? Tropisms. If you've done biology. Okay, so you plant a seed in the ground. Why does it grow up and not down?
It does both, doesn't it?
If the roots go down,
Yeah.
and the other thing, whatever it's called, goes up. Why does the roots not go up and the other thing goes down? Or why not sideways? Why does it always go down and up? It's called geotropism. It can sense gravity. And so it functions, it grows according to what gravity does. A creeper, a vine, starts at the base of this tree and winds its way around. Thigmotropism, it feels. So there's this intelligence. Now it doesn't mean that it's conscious awareness. Okay, don't confuse it with subjective experience. But there's this intelligence functioning in nature which causes nature to grow in its own particular way. You've got these cycles and cycles of nature that continue to express themselves. Daily cycles, monthly cycles. How does nature know? Think of the menstrual cycle. How does it know? Why is it this regular repeating pattern? Why is it just not randomly every so often? How does nature know what to do? I don't know. So what we're looking at is you don't have to invoke some crazy idea of a God sitting up in the clouds, he, as you rightly said, looking down and judging us and deciding to interfere occasionally with miracles and occasionally not to let people suffer. You don't have to create this God thing. Just look around you. And when you recognize there's this thing which baffles my intellect, ascharya, wonderment, the feeling arises. And what's really interesting is if you read, there's a number of famous scientists, and when you read their writings, their scientific inquiry is propelled by this intense, beautiful feeling towards nature. How does nature function? That's so incredible, I have no idea. There's a feeling of wonderment towards how the physical world is constructed and how it works, towards how the biological world is constructed and how it works. And that spurs their intellectual inquiry to discover more and more and more and more. So there's no conflict between this feeling of devotion and scientific inquiry. There's no conflict between this feeling of devotion and whatever your religious status is, whatever you claim it to be. Religious, atheist, agnostic, you can feel it. In fact, often, this is part of the problem, our religious affiliation gets in the way. Because there's doctrine, there's dogma, there's expectations that you have to feel a certain thing, and you have to believe a certain thing, and you have to act a certain way. Discard the whole religion. Now you're free to feel, think, and to act as you will. And you can think, feel, and act in a way which improves you as a human being, which makes you more humanly mature. Right? So this is what gratitude can flower into. What you're recognizing is an all-pervading sense of something. Now we use this word divinity because we've got to give it a label. We've got to call it something. So let's use this word divinity. So what happens is that we're feeling ourselves now as part of a larger whole. When we talk about nature, what do we refer to? Trees, grass, sunrise, and all the rest of it. Insects walking around on the ground. And what's the one thing we usually forget about when we're talking about nature? That we don't remember as a part of nature? Yeah, me. The human race. I am as much a part of nature as anything else. I wasn't manufactured by a robot somewhere in a factory. I'm as much part of nature as the tree is. As much a part of nature as the squirrel. My nature functions. My physical body has its functions. It does what it does. My emotional nature does what it does. My intellectual nature does what it does. So nature's flowing through me as much as it's flowing through anything else. And so you start to feel yourself as part of something larger now. So this is another way that we can understand the effacement of the ego. The ego is that thing which creates boundary and separation. As we grow in this feeling of devotion, we're feeling ourselves much more naturally a part of nature now. And so, having ranted against religions, let's balance the books by saying that we can use our religions as well for that purpose. So when we have our prayers, when we have our rituals, when we have the things that religion has embodied within it, if we understand devotion, if we start to understand its purpose, then we can start to use those rituals and those prayers for the reason for which they were devised. Why create prayer? Why is the Bible full of psalms? Why does Jesus give the Lord's Prayer in the New Testament? Why is the Rig Veda full of hymns and prayers to nature? Why does the Catholic Church have all of these ornate, magnificent ceremonies? It's to create that sense of awe. So now we understand it, we can come back to our religions with a proper understanding and infuse those prayers and those practices with what they're meant to be used for. So I know a lady who was, she's in her 60s now, I think. She grew up Catholic, went to a Catholic school, and went to one of those very sort of stereotypical, harsh, very doctrinaire, very authoritarian Catholic schools. And as a result, ended up rejecting the religion. You know? But at the same time, she was conflicted because, you know, one of the things that the Catholic Church does have is those beautiful, ornate rituals. You know, the priest or whatever it is comes out fully dressed, waving the censer around, and you've got all that beautiful smoke. You walk into the cathedrals and there's that sense of, oh, it's beautiful. It's magnificent architecture. You've got these beautiful paintings, larger than life. The sense, it's got that wonderful aspect to it. And she was disappointed because she kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater a little bit, you know. She rejected the negative side of it, but also threw away the positive side. She'd been studying Vedanta for a number of years, and it came to her, my God, I can go back to it. And so she went back to her religion, but this time she was able to just pass off all the negative stuff and draw all the beautiful stuff that she loves so much about it. So we can use the religious practices and techniques, if you want to put it that way, once we understand their specific purpose. And so again, this is where it can become a part of a practice. So you can punctuate your day with prayers, with rituals and ceremonies. You punctuate your week, you punctuate your year, you know. You often hear about the Islamic faith, you know, the strictly orthodox 5 times a day. The academy where I studied, it's non-religious, there's no religious affiliation at the academy per se, but we pray early morning before we study, sunrise, before the meals, before the lecture, before the group discussion, 7 times a day. Having said that, they're sort of like, you know, 30, 45 seconds each. It's not like you've got to sit there, you've got to sit there for half an hour each time, right? But the point is that you punctuate the day, and so you might put it at specific times. So sunrise, sunset is a good time, or before every meal. You know, people often say grace. You don't have to make a big deal out of it. Nobody has to know you're doing it. You know, you put your food in front of you and take your phone out and pretend that you're just checking your emails. No, you're not checking your emails. You're just giving a little prayer of thanks. I didn't make this food. Even if I did make it, I didn't grow the food. How does it get pushed out of the ground? I don't know. Unbelievable. Ascharya, ascharya. You know, so you choose something that works for you. But you can find something to just punctuate your day, just to give you that reminder. You know, the prayers that we do at the academy, they're all in Sanskrit. And you ask people to translate them, most people won't know what they're saying. We had some visitors come once, and they were there for the mealtime prayer. And they said to me afterwards, like, who do you pray to? And I said, well, me personally, no one. I said, but anyone else? Everyone's different. You know, if there's a Muslim there, he might be praying to Allah. If there's a Christian there, he might be praying to Christ. If there's a Hindu there, it could be Ganesha or Saraswati or Lakshmi or any one of the, or it could be one of the saints, or you could be praying to the teacher, or you could be praying to yourself. You could be praying to nature, or God. If you, everyone's got their own personal way of doing it. There's no doctrine. There's no dogma. It's simply an understanding of what the purpose is. It's just to get that feeling. So this is another way you punctuate your day with these sorts of rituals. Other things that can work are appreciation of music, poetry, art. So in the same way that we're talking about tapping into the beauty of nature, if you tap into the beauty of artistry, then you can start to get that feeling. So in fact, one of the ways that you can talk about devotion is to see the beauty of something, to see its universal beauty. I look at you and I see your beauty. It means you've got a beautiful face, you've got a beautiful body. This is not what we're talking about. Because the implication then is, I can look at another person and say, oh no, that's not beautiful. Doesn't make sense. Think of it this way. Here's a challenge. Go for a bushwalk or go for a walk along the beach. Find a leaf, find a shell that is not beautiful. Try it. You cannot do it. You can't walk along the beach and pick up a shell and say, no, this one's not beautiful, I did it, success. If you did, don't tell anyone. The point that we're making is when you recognize nature as being part of nature, it's got its own natural beauty to it. It's not beautiful because it's a particular shape or because it's a particular color. It's beautiful because you recognize nature in and through itself. So it's not in the quality, it's not in the property. Where is that beauty? It's not there. That's where it is. It's here. That's where it is. That's where it is. And we throw that beauty out onto the world and say, that's beautiful. Nope. There's a great quote from Swami Ramatirtha. He says, you shed your spiritual luster on the world and call it beautiful. And then you go chasing those things, not realizing that the beauty that you're seeing is just a reflection of what's going on in here. So this is another way that we can start to tap into that feeling of devotions, by seeing the universal beauty. Not the beauty of the quality, not the beauty of the property, not the shape or the structure or the color, because that's changeable. You're beautiful. Then you get in an accident, you're disfigured. Oh, you're not beautiful anymore. Then you never saw the beauty. It was never there. So again, looking for that, universal beauty. The final way that we can think about eliciting devotion is by getting into a community. So if you're familiar with, what kirtan is? You know what kirtan is? Kirtan, another word we sometimes use is bhajans. It basically means community singing of yeah, it's all in Sanskrit or some other language. It's basically community singing. You get together and you just say, and the Christian faith, they have hymns, for example. It's basically getting together, and that's a big part of it is the community. And you're all together. You're singing towards the higher thing. And again, what's interesting is you might be singing words that are Sanskrit, referring to the theology of the Vedas. You've got no idea what you're singing. You know, one guy who's a Hindu, he doesn't know what he's singing. Another guy's an atheist, another guy's a Christian, another guy's a Muslim, another guy's a Sikh. None of them knows what they're singing. It doesn't matter what you're singing. That's just a symbol. You use that symbol to reach beyond the symbol into the thing that you know you're reaching for. What is it? What is that thing? Yeah, but what's the thing that what is that thing that you're trying to represent? With the sim, with the singing, with the symbol, with the idol, with the ritual. Connection with nature, yeah? That's a method. What are you trying to connect to? The source? What is the source? I don't know. Keeps coming back to that, I don't know. Yeah, and so this is where we give it all of these names. It's good to give it names, because the name is the thing that we can hold on to. But remember that the name doesn't define it. The name is just the target that we give ourselves for our thinking and our feeling, so that we can remember that thing that I'm going towards, I don't know. But I know it's there. I believe it's there. The words themselves have to represent the values that you're trying to aspire towards. And so if you ever read the translation of the Kirtan, or the translation of the poetry in the Rig Veda, it's all very uplifting in its meaning. But if you engage in that kind of practice, you don't specifically have to know the meaning. So at the academy we sing bhajans every evening, and there was one Westerner there. I was listening to a conversation he had with someone, and the girl said to him, yeah, but we don't know what we're singing. And he said very glibly, he said, we're singing about God, that's all we need to know. That was kind of his response. It doesn't matter what the words are. We're singing about God, that's enough. Yeah. So yeah, if you are singing words and you know what they mean, then they do have to carry that connotation. You know, if the words themselves are talking about the beauty of nature, then that will have that effect of stimulating that feeling in you. It's talking about the grandeur and the beauty of the divine. It'll stimulate it. So yeah, the words have to be in harmony with the feeling that you're trying to create. So it's a process of self-development by allowing the emotions to just flow towards the higher. So this is why he says in the text, true devotion is faith in good rather than faith in God. Forget God. You don't know what God is. But have faith in good. Have faith in your own development. Have faith that there's a higher state of being that you can achieve. You know, more love, more knowledge, more understanding. No ego. Okay, any questions? Good, because questions is thinking, we just want feeling. We don't know. All right. Thank you. Thank you.